The stars hung quiet in the endless dark. Out beyond the last patrol routes of the colony world Raven's reach, the void was calm, until the scanners caught something moving. At first, it was only a faint blip on the edge of the screen, a drifting shadow against the black. The sensor officer frowned and adjusted the view. Slowly, a shape began to appear, long, scarred metal, turning slowly in space. No lights, no beacons. Captain Ilara Vance stood behind the crew, arms folded, watching the image grow sharper. It was a ship, but nothing like she had seen before. Its hull was covered in strange grooves, like claw marks. Parts of it looked burnt, twisted, rebuilt from scrap. "Where did it come from?" she asked quietly. The answer came from the helm officer, his voice tight. "Ma'am, its trajectory puts it outside the galactic routes. It's coming from Class 15. The control room went silent. Class 15. The words were enough to drain all color from a person's face. The galaxy had many dangerous planets, but Class 15 worlds were different. They weren't just dangerous, they were death worlds. No one survived them. The storms could crush a ship. The air was poison. The wildlife, it didn't just hunt for food, it hunted for sport. There was only one Class 15 planet in this sector, a cursed world called Vorelia. No ship had ever come back from there. "Scan it again," Ilara ordered. The crew obeyed, hands moving quickly over controls. The results came in seconds later, and they made the captain's heart tighten. Life signs. Human. The words felt impossible. Humans could not live on a death world. No human ship could leave one. And yet, here it was, drifting toward their colony. "Open a hail," she said. The comms officer sent the signal. Static filled the air. No reply. They tried again, and again. Still silence. The captain leaned closer to the screen. The ship was turning, as if something inside had shifted its weight. But its engines were dead. Its navigation systems were cold. It was just drifting. "Ma'am, should we board?" the first officer asked. Ilara didn't answer right away. Boarding a ship from a death world was madness. For all they knew, the entire thing could be infected with alien spores or filled with predators waiting for fresh prey. And yet those life signs, they were human. That meant someone, somehow, had survived on Vorelia. Her instincts told her there was a story here, one the galaxy needed to hear. "Prepare a boarding team," she said at last. The team suited, up in reinforced armor. Weapons charged, helmets sealed. Even with the strongest protection, there was no guarantee they would come back alive. As the boarding craft moved toward the strange vessel, the crew of Raven's Reach Command watched. In silence, the Death World ship grew larger in the viewport. Its surface looked wrong, like metal fused with something organic. Veins of black material ran across its sides, pulsing faintly, almost as if the ship itself was breathing. "Docking clamps. In position," the pilot of the boarding craft reported. A heavy clang echoed through the comms as the ships connected. The boarding hatch opened with a hiss of stale air. The smell hit them first. Thick, metallic, with a hint of decay. The corridor beyond was dark, lit only by the dim glow of emergency strips along the floor. The walls were dented and scorched. In some places they seemed melted, as if by intense heat. "Keep your weapons ready," said Sergeant Cade, leader of the team. They moved forward slowly, boots crunching over debris. Loose wires hung like vines. Panels were torn from the walls. The air felt heavy, making every breath a little harder. Halfway down the corridor, they saw the first strange sign, a trail of footprints, not boot prints, bare human feet. The steps were uneven, as if whoever made them was weak, limping. "Movement ahead," one soldier whispered. Everyone froze. Something shifted in the shadows. A faint sound, a slow, dragging step, echoed through the corridor. The team raised their rifles, beams of light cutting through the dark. "Identify yourself," Sergeant Cade called out. No answer. Then a voice came from the darkness, low, tired, filled with warning. "You shouldn't have come here." The lights caught a figure. Human. A man, tall but thin, with tangled hair and a face marked by scars. His clothes were torn and patched with bits of alien hide. His eyes were sharp, but behind them was something else. The look of someone who had seen too much. He stepped forward slowly, hands open, but his voice stayed hard. "If you found me, they will find you too." Before anyone could ask what he meant, a deep sound shook the hull. Not an explosion. A thud. Heavy. Rhythmic. Something was moving outside the ship, and it was getting closer. The sound outside the hull faded into the silence of space, but the survivor's eyes stayed fixed on the shadows beyond the corridor. His breathing was slow, controlled, like a man who had learned to stay calm when death was near. Captain Alara's voice came through the comms, steady but tense. "Boarding team report," Sergeant Cade replied quickly. "We found a human survivor, Captain. Unknown condition. He says there's danger nearby." The captain's reply came with a pause, as if she already knew the answer. "Where is the ship from?" The survivor spoke before Cade could answer. His voice was cold. "You already know. You wouldn't have come here if you didn't." Cade looked at him carefully. "Varelia? The Class 15 world?" The man's lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. "That's what you call it. We call it home." The words made the team exchange uneasy glances. No one called a death world home, not unless they were insane, or something worse. Varelia's reputation stretched across the galaxy. It was a place the strongest alien predators refused to hunt. Its storms could strip a ship's hull in minutes. Its forests were filled with creatures that saw anything alive as food. Even the ground itself was deadly, covered in plants that poisoned the air. Long ago, humanity had sent an exploration fleet to Varelia. None had returned. Official records called it a failed mission. But in the back corners of spaceports, whispered stories told of survivors who became something else. Something stronger. Ilara knew those stories. She had never believed them. Until now. "How long have you been out there?" she asked through the comms. The survivor turned his gaze toward the wall, as if counting years in his head. "Generations. My people were born there, raised there. We learned to fight the storms, hunt the hunters, and breathe the air that kills." His voice carried no pride, only a simple statement of fact. Cade stepped closer. "Then why leave? If you survived, why risk coming here?" The man's eyes darkened. "Because the planet let me go. It wanted me to come." The team froze. The idea made no sense. How could a planet want anything? As if sensing their doubt, the survivor continued. "Varelia isn't just rock and air. It's alive. Every storm, every creature, every vine. Part of one thing, one mind. It watches. It learns. And when something tries to escape, it follows." His gaze drifted back toward the hull, toward the black outside. "That's why you heard the thuds. It knows where I am now. It won't stop." Before anyone could speak, the ship shuddered. This time the sound was closer, a scraping, like claws dragging across metal. The survivor's voice dropped to a whisper. "They've found us." The sound came again, a slow, dragging scrape that ran along the length of the hull. Every few seconds, there was a dull thud, heavy enough to make the deck tremble under their boots. Sergeant Cade raised his hand, signaling the team to hold position. The only light came from the narrow glow strips on the floor, casting long, thin shadows that seemed to shift when no one was moving. The survivor didn't look afraid. but his muscles were tense. "They're testing the metal," he murmured, looking for a weak spot. One of the soldiers muttered under his breath, "They? Who are they?" The man's eyes flicked to him, cold and sharp. "Hunters. You've never seen anything like them." Before the soldier could ask more, the ship gave a violent shudder. Somewhere deep in the corridor ahead, a panel dropped from the wall with a clang. Dust and debris floated in the air, caught in the faint gravity field. Cade gestured for the team to move forward, their rifles raised. The corridor stretched on in eerie silence, broken only by the sound of their breathing. They passed rooms that looked untouched for years, tables covered in dust, chairs overturned, personal items scattered on the floor. In one cabin, a meal tray still sat on the table, the food dried into a hard crust. "Looks like they left in a hurry," one soldier whispered. "No," the survivor said softly. "They didn't leave. They were taken." The team stopped. From somewhere above them came the sound of a slow, heavy footstep. Then another, and another. The noise was moving across the ceiling, heading toward them. Cade signaled for lights up. Beams of white swept across the dark, chasing away the shadows, but there was nothing there. Only twisted pipes and broken panels. Then the comms cracked, with static, and a voice. Not one of theirs hissed through. "You shouldn't be here." The words were low, strained, and came from no clear direction. Cade spun toward the survivor. "Was that you?" The man shook his head once. "That wasn't me." Before they could react, a metallic shriek tore through the air. The ceiling above them bulged inward as something struck it from the other side, hard enough to dent the metal. The survivor's voice was steady, but his words were grim. "You've just been marked. Now it won't matter if you run." A final thunderous blow hit the ceiling, and the metal gave way. Something dropped down into the corridor. It was tall, its limbs too long, moving with a strange, jerking speed. Its skin was a pale, mottled color, stretched over sharp bones. Where its eyes should have been were black pits, and its mouth was a mess of needle-like teeth. The creature let out a low, vibrating growl that rattled in their chests. The survivor didn't hesitate. "Open fire!" The corridor exploded with light and sound as gunfire tore through the air. Blue flashes lit the walls while the creature twisted unnaturally to avoid the shots. Bullets slammed into its pale skin, spraying black fluid that hissed. When it hit the floor, the thing screamed, not in pain, but in fury, a high, piercing wail that made every soldier's ears ring. It leapt forward with terrifying speed, knocking one soldier to the ground. Its claws scraped across the man's helmet, leaving deep, smoking gouges. Before anyone could help, the survivor moved. He didn't aim a gun. Instead, he drew a blade that looked as if it had been forged from bone and metal fused together. With a single step, he was on the creature, moving faster than any human had a right to. The blade sank into the beast's neck, cutting through with a sharp, wet sound. The creature convulsed, letting out another ear-splitting cry before collapsing onto the floor. Its body twitched for a few moments, then lay still, black blood pooling beneath it. The soldiers stared at the survivor. His chest rose and fell steadily, not even winded. Sergeant Cade lowered his rifle. "How did you learn?" The survivor wiped the blade on the creature's hide. "On Varelia, you learn fast, or you die." Cade's eyes narrowed. "That thing was hunting you?" The man shook his head slowly. "No, it was hunting us. When you came aboard, you became prey." Captain Ilara's voice broke through the comms, tight with urgency. "Boarding team, report!" Cade answered. "Creature down. One confirmed kill. No injuries." He glanced at the survivor. "You're coming with us. Command will want answers." The survivor didn't move. His eyes drifted toward the corridor behind them, his voice low. "If you think one kill means you're safe, you don't understand. That scream it made, it wasn't dying. Cade frowned. Then what was it doing? The survivor looked him in the eye, his tone grim. It was calling for more. A deep thud echoed through the ship, followed by another and another, each one closer. The survivor's grip on his blade tightened. "You have no idea what's coming." The thuds grew heavier, shaking the floor beneath their boots. Dust drifted down from the ceiling, and somewhere deep in the ship, metal groaned. As if under enormous pressure, Sergeant Cade turned to his team. "Form a perimeter. Keep your weapons on the corridor." The survivor didn't join the formation. Instead, he walked to one of the walls and pressed his hand against the cold metal, listening. His expression hardened. "They're already inside." "The hull," a soldier swore under his breath. "That's impossible. We sealed the docking clamps." The survivor cut him off. "Doors and clamps don't matter to them. They find cracks. They make cracks." A sudden screech echoed through the ship, like nails tearing across steel, followed by a loud bang on the starboard side. The sound was so close it made the team flinch. Then silence. Cade slowly raised his hand, signaling for the squad to hold. "Stay sharp. We don't know—" The wall beside them burst inward with terrifying force. Shards of twisted metal flew through the air. From the hole, two creatures poured into the corridor, long-limbed like the first, but faster, their movements jerky and unpredictable. The soldiers opened fire immediately. Bright muzzle flashes lit the hallway, bullets tearing into the beasts. Black blood splattered the walls, sizzling as it hit the deck, but the creatures didn't fall. The survivor stepped forward, his blade flashing in the dim light. He moved. With lethal precision, slashing deep into the joint of one creature's leg, sending it crashing to the ground. The second lunged for him, but he ducked under its swing and drove his weapon up through its chest. The air filled with their piercing cries, the same sound the first one had made before it died. Cade's stomach sank. That noise again. "It's a signal, isn't it?" The survivor's answer was grim. "Yes, they don't stop until their mark is dead. And now, you're all marked." Another thud shook the ship, this one heavier than before. The deck vibrated beneath their feet. The survivor glanced toward the noise, his voice dropping. "That's not just hunters. That's something bigger." From far down the corridor came the sound of metal bending, and something dragging itself closer. The dragging sound grew louder, metal groaning under enormous weight. Lights along the corridor flickered, then went out one by one, plunging the team into darkness. Only the faint glow from their helmet visors lit their faces. "Night vision now," Sergeant Cade ordered. Green outlines filled their view, but the darkness seemed thicker here, as if it was pressing in. The sound of claws scraping against the floor echoed closer, steady and deliberate. The survivor's voice was calm, almost too calm. "It's not rushing. That means it's confident." Cade raised his rifle toward the sound. "What is it?" The man's answer was cold. "A prime hunter. Bigger. Smarter. Deadlier." Before anyone could react, something massive moved at the far end of the corridor. A shape too large for the passage, its back scraping the ceiling. Two burning eyes appeared in the dark, fixed on them. Then it charged. The deck shook under its speed. The soldiers opened fire, their bullets cutting bright lines through the darkness. The creature roared, a deep bone-shaking sound, and slammed into the squad. One soldier was thrown against the wall with a sickening crack. The survivor darted, forward, his blade flashing as he struck at the creature's limbs, aiming for joints. The beast swiped at him with claws the size of swords, missing by inches. Its movements were fast, but calculated. It was learning his rhythm. Cade fired. A burst into its head, black blood spraying across the walls. The creature staggered, then vanished into the dark with impossible speed. "Where is it?" one soldier whispered, scanning the shadows. The survivor didn't look up from his stance. "It's hunting us now! It'll kill the weakest first!" As if on cue, a scream came from the rear of the group. One of the soldiers was yanked into the shadows, his rifle clattering to the floor. A gunshot echoed. Then silence. The survivor turned to Cade. "You can still get your people out, but only if you follow me." Cade hesitated. "And if we don't?" The man's eyes were like steel. "Then you all die here, just like the last crew that boarded this ship." The sound of the creature's claws began again, circling them in the dark. The claws kept circling in the dark, scraping across the walls like a clock counting down. Every sound made the soldiers' fingers twitch on their triggers. The survivor moved ahead without fear, gesturing for them to follow. "Stay close. It won't attack while I'm leading." Cade's voice was low. "Why not?" "Because it's curious," the man replied. "It knows I'm not like you." They moved through a series of narrow corridors, stepping over broken cables and debris. The creature's sound followed, never far behind. Finally, they reached a sealed bulkhead. The survivor pressed his palm to a strange mark on the door, a pattern burned into the metal, like veins branching from a single point. With a hiss, the door slid open, revealing a chamber lit by a soft blue glow. The walls here were different, smoother, almost organic. Faint pulses of light moved through them, as if the metal was alive. Cade frowned. "What is this place?" The survivor looked around the chamber, his expression almost respectful. "This is where the truth begins." He turned to face them. "You think Varelia is just a death world, a dangerous planet with dangerous creatures. But it's more than that. Much more." The soldiers listened, their rifles still up. The storms, the animals, the plants. They aren't separate things. They're parts of one mind. The whole planet is alive. It thinks, it watches, it remembers, and it hates losing anything it claims. One soldier shook his head. "That's impossible. A planet can't think." The man stepped closer, his voice steady. "It can. I've lived there my whole life. I've felt it speak in the wind, seen it in the eyes of the hunters. When something leaves the planet, it feels the loss, and it comes to take it back." Cade's voice tightened. "So, you didn't just escape. It let you go." The survivor nodded slowly. "It wants me to bring something, or someone, back." The chamber suddenly shook, a deep rumble rolling through the floor. The blue glow in the walls pulsed faster, almost like a heartbeat. The survivor's eyes narrowed. "It knows we're talking about it." From the corridor behind them came the prime hunter's roar, louder than before. The survivor's voice dropped to a whisper. Now it's angry. The roar faded into a deep, steady vibration that ran through the walls. It wasn't the sound of footsteps now. It was something much larger, something outside the ship. Sergeant Cade pressed a hand to his helmet. "Command, we're getting tremors in the hull. Are you reading this?" Captain Alara's voice came, back, tense. "We see it. The ship's drifting a... No, wait." There was a pause. Then her voice hardened. "It's accelerating toward Varelia." The soldiers exchanged quick, uneasy looks. Cade said, "That's impossible. The engines are offline." The survivor shook his head. "Engines aren't the only way to move a ship. The planet's calling it back." A soldier scoffed. "Calling? What does that even mean?" The man stepped toward the bulkhead and placed his palm against the living wall. "The same way a spider pulls a fly back to its web." Suddenly, the lights on the control panels around the chamber flickered on, even though no one had touched them. Symbols flashed in a language none of the soldiers recognized, sharp, curved shapes that pulsed in rhythm with the vibration. Alara's voice crackled through the comms again, sharper now. "Cade, you've got to move. At this speed, you'll hit atmosphere in 6 minutes. If you can't break free, the heat will tear the hull apart." The survivor looked back at them, calm but serious. "You can't just turn around and leave. Varelia doesn't let go. The more you fight, the harder it pulls." Cade's jaw tightened. "Then how do we stop it?" The man hesitated. You don't stop it from out here. He pointed down to the deck. You stop it from inside. Inside. The planet. The soldiers stared at him in disbelief. You're saying we go there? One asked. The survivor's eyes didn't waver. If you want to live, yes. A sharp alarm blared from the team's suit radios. The ship had just crossed into Vorelia's gravity well. From outside, the hull came a sound none of them had heard before. A long, echoing cry, like something vast and ancient was singing in the dark. The survivor's voice was almost a whisper. It knows we're coming home. Vorelia filled the viewport now. A massive, swirling world of black clouds and lightning that cut across the sky like cracks in glass. Its surface was hidden under layers of storm, but every flash revealed glimpses of jagged mountains, crimson forests, and rivers that glowed faintly in the dark. The ship shook violently as the planet's gravity pulled harder. Flames began to lick across the edges of the hull from the heat of re-entry. Metal groaned, rivets popped, and warning alarms wailed through every corridor. Structural integrity at 60%, a soldier shouted over the comms. Captain Alara's voice came through, tight with strain. We're trying to slow you from up here, but something's pushing you down as hard as we're pulling you up. I've never seen anything like it. The survivor stood near the viewport, staring at the storm below. It's not just gravity, he said quietly. It's pulling you where it wants you to land. Cade stepped up beside him. And where's that? The man's eyes narrowed. Somewhere you won't be able to leave. A bolt of lightning the size of a skyscraper struck close to the ship, flooding the cabin in white light. For a brief second, they saw shapes moving in the clouds, massive winged creatures, their eyes glowing like embers. They weren't flying. Randomly. They were circling. The ship plunged lower into the churning storm. Rain slammed against the hull like bullets, and the wind howled so loudly it drowned out the alarms. Visibility dropped to nothing, but the winged shapes stayed with them, gliding effortlessly through the chaos. Suddenly, one of the creatures swooped close to the viewport, its scaled head twisting to look directly inside. Rows of needle-like teeth showed in a grin that wasn't human, but wasn't mindless either. The survivor's voice was grim. They know you're marked. A violent jolt threw everyone to the floor as the ship broke through the clouds. Below them stretched a valley of impossible size, walled by mountains that vanished into the mist. In the center of the valley was something even stranger. A vast, glowing structure that pulsed like a heartbeat. The survivor pointed at it. That's where it wants us. Cade's stomach turned. And what happens if we land? The man's answer was simple. Then the real hunt begins. The ship shuddered as its landing thrusters failed, dropping the last few hundred meters like a stone. The impact rattled every bone in their bodies, but somehow the hull held. Smoke and steam hissed from ruptured vents as the storm above roared like an angry ocean. When the boarding ramp lowered, the soldiers stepped out cautiously, weapons ready. The air was heavy, thick with a metallic taste. Strange plants grew in, twisted shapes, their leaves glistening with a faint red glow. The ground itself seemed to pulse underfoot, as if alive. But it wasn't the valley's alien beauty that caught their attention. It was the structure. Rising from the valley floor was a massive complex of stone and metal half buried in the earth. Towers stretched upward like broken teeth, and strange symbols covered every surface. Despite its alien surroundings, parts of it looked human. Cade frowned. This shouldn't be possible. Humans have never been here. The survivor gave a thin smile. That's what you were told. They moved closer, boots crunching on the wet ground. As they entered the ruins, the temperature dropped, and a low hum filled the air. The walls inside were smooth, seamless, and covered in carvings. Not random scratches, but writing. One soldier ran a gloved hand across the markings. These are old Terran, pre-space age. Cade's eyes narrowed. How could something from Earth's past be here? Before anyone could answer, a soft light flickered in the center of the chamber. A figure formed in the air, a hologram of a woman. She looked human, her face calm but serious. Her clothes were unfamiliar, a blend of ancient and futuristic styles. The hologram's eyes moved, scanning the group until they locked onto Cade. "You came," she said, her voice clear despite the static. Cade froze. "You know me?" The woman tilted her head. "I know all of you. You are the ones who decide if this place remains hidden or if it burns." The hum in the walls grew louder, vibrating through the floor. Outside, the storm rumbled as if answering her words. The survivor stepped forward. "Tell them the truth." The hologram's gaze shifted to him. "If they hear the truth, they may not survive it." A deep roar echoed through the valley, closer this time. The Prime Hunter was here. The hologram's voice became urgent. "If you wish to live, follow me, and do not look back." The hologram turned and began to walk deeper into the ruins. Her image flickered, but the path ahead lit with a pale blue glow, guiding the soldiers through winding corridors. The air grew colder, and the humming in the walls became a steady heartbeat. They passed through a massive door made of black metal. Inside was a circular chamber, its ceiling so high it vanished into shadow. Around the walls stood rows of tall sealed capsules. Dust coated their surfaces, but faint light still blinked on each one. Cade stepped closer, his breath caught. Inside the capsules were people, humans, their eyes closed, their faces pale but peaceful, as if asleep. "What is this?" he whispered. The hologram stopped in the center of the room and turned to face them. "This is the last colony ship from Earth's first expansion. It was sent here centuries ago, long before your histories began recording space travel. The mission was to tame Vorelia and make it humanity's strongest outpost." A soldier shook his head. "Why would anyone choose this place? It's a death world." Her gaze was cold. "Exactly. The strongest warriors are forged in the deadliest fires, but the planet fought back harder than anyone expected." She raised her hand, and the capsules lit brighter, revealing scars on some of the sleepers, as if they had survived terrible battles before being sealed away. "Only a few survived the first war," the hologram continued. "They were placed in stasis until the time came to finish what they began. You were never supposed to find them. Not yet." Cade frowned. "Then why pull us here?" The hologram's expression darkened. "Because Vorelia has awakened again. The hunters are gathering, and without these warriors, your kind will not survive the next wave." A sudden crash shook the ruins, dust raining from the ceiling. A loud screech echoed through the halls, the sound of something massive tearing its way inside. The hologram's voice hardened. "You must choose. Wake them or run. But know this, once they awaken, the war begins again." The survivor stepped forward, his voice low but urgent. "Cade, you need to understand. I was one of them." The chamber shook again, harder this time, as the sound of claws scraped against the metal walls. A deep growl rolled through the ruins, so powerful it made the air vibrate. The soldiers raised their weapons, but Cade could see fear in their eyes. The survivor stepped closer to the nearest capsule. "We don't have time to argue. Once the Prime Hunter gets in here, we're all dead." Cade hesitated, glancing at the hologram. "If we wake them, will they even fight for us?" The hologram's expression was unreadable. "They will fight for humanity. But you must remember, they are not like you anymore. They were made for war, and war is all they remember." A massive impact rattled the room. A section of the outer wall tore open, revealing a glimpse of something huge. Black scales, glowing red eyes, and teeth like curved blades. The Prime Hunter roared, and the sound felt like it could shatter bones. Cade clenched his jaw. Wake them. The hologram's eyes glowed brighter. As you wish. The blue lights above each capsule turned crimson. Steam hissed from the seals as centuries of stasis locks released. One by one, the capsules opened, releasing tall, battle-scarred figures in armor that looked older than any technology the soldiers had seen. The warriors stepped out, their eyes sharp and alert, moving with the deadly grace of predators. Their armor bore strange symbols, the same ones carved into the walls outside. One of them, a towering man with silver hair and a scar running down his face, looked directly at Cade. Who commands here? Cade swallowed hard. I do, the warrior nodded once. Then point us toward the enemy. Another impact shook the chamber, and part of the ceiling collapsed. The Prime Hunter's massive head forced its way inside, teeth snapping, eyes blazing. The silver-haired warrior smiled, a dangerous, almost joyful smile. It's been too long. Without waiting for orders, he and the others charged toward the breach, weapons glowing in their hands. The air filled with the sound of ancient war cries as the fight began. Cade watched them go, a chill running down his spine. He had just unleashed something that might save them, or doom them all. The Prime Hunter forced its way into the chamber, tearing through walls like paper. Its body filled the space, black scales glistening under the faint blue lights, claws scraping deep grooves into the floor. Every step made the ground tremble. The silver-haired warrior moved first. In a blur of motion, he leapt onto the creature's back, driving a glowing spear into its hide. The Prime Hunter roared in rage, twisting violently, smashing into stone, pillars as it tried to throw him off. Two more ancient warriors darted in from the sides, striking with weapons that crackled with blue energy. Sparks flew as their blades bit into the beast's armored skin. The air filled with the deafening sound of roars, battle shouts, and the crash of collapsing stone. The soldiers watched in awe. These warriors didn't move like ordinary humans. They were faster, stronger, relentless. One vaulted over the beast's snapping jaws, planting a grenade in its mouth before rolling away. The explosion shook the ruins, spraying black blood across the walls. But the Prime Hunter was far from dead. It lashed out with its tail, sending one of the warriors flying into a wall so hard the stone cracked. Another was caught in its claws, armor screeching under the pressure. The beast opened its jaws wide, ready to finish the kill. But Cade fired his rifle, aiming for the creature's glowing eyes. The shot hit, making the Prime Hunter flinch. It wasn't much, but it was enough for the trapped warrior to break. Free! The hologram's voice echoed through the chaos. Its heart is the key! Strike deep! The silver-haired warrior heard her, roared a battle cry, and plunged his spear straight into the beast's chest. The weapon's glow flared, and shockwave burst outward, rattling the chamber. The Prime Hunter let out one final, bone-shaking scream before collapsing, its massive body slamming into the ground. The ruins fell silent except for the sound of heavy breathing. Dust drifted in the air like smoke after a fire. Cade stared at the fallen creature. Is it over? The silver-haired warrior looked at him, eyes cold. No, that was only the first. The Prime Hunter's body lay still, its black blood pooling across the cracked floor. For a moment, the soldiers allowed themselves to breathe, their weapons lowering slightly. The ancient warriors stood silent, their eyes scanning the shadows, as if expecting more. Then, the ground trembled again. This time, it wasn't a single impact. It was a rhythm, a deep, pounding rhythm, like hundreds of footsteps moving in unison. Cade froze. Tell me that's not... The hologram's voice cut in, sharp and urgent. They are coming, The Death World has answered the Prime Hunter's call. From outside the ruined walls came the sound of snarls, growls, and the scraping of claws against stone. It grew louder with each second, until the echoes became a roar that shook the valley. Dust rained from the ceiling as cracks spread across the walls. The survivor's face paled. It's a swarm, thousands, maybe more. Through the massive breach where the Prime Hunter had entered, shapes began to appear in the darkness, dozens of glowing eyes moving closer. Shadows shifted and merged, forming a living wave of predators. Some crawled across the walls like insects. Others bounded forward on 4 massive legs, their fangs glinting in the faint light. The silver-haired warrior's voice was steady, but there was a fire in his tone. "Then we hold this ground, no matter the cost." The other ancient warriors tightened their grips on their weapons. The soldiers checked their ammunition, fear and adrenaline mixing in their veins. The swarm came into full view now, creatures of all shapes and sizes, each more grotesque than the last. Their screeches filled the air, a chorus of death. Cade swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment. If they fell here, the last hope for humanity would be buried with them. The silver-haired warrior looked at him once more. "Commander, give the order." Cade raised his weapon, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "Stand your ground. We fight." And then, the storm of beasts charged. The swarm hit like a tidal wave. The first line of creatures smashed against the ancient warriors, claws and teeth flashing in the dim light. Steel met flesh, and the air filled with the sounds of battle, the clash of weapons, the roars of beasts, and the screams of the dying. The silver-haired warrior moved like lightning, his glowing spear cutting through enemies with brutal precision. Around him, the other warriors fought with the same deadly skill, each strike leaving another beast in pieces. Cade and his soldiers fired in controlled bursts, emptying magazines into the endless wave. For every creature that fell, 2 more pushed forward. The air was thick with smoke, blood, and the scent of burning flesh from energy weapons. One massive beast broke through the line, knocking a soldier to the ground. Before it could strike, the survivor, the man who had first warned them about the ship, tackled it, driving a blade deep into its throat. He screamed in pain as claws tore into his side, but he didn't stop until the creature fell still. The hologram's voice rose above the chaos. "You cannot hold them forever. You must trigger the ship's core. It will destroy the swarm." Cade looked toward the far end of the chamber where the ship's heart pulsed with a deep red glow, but between him and it was nothing but enemies. "Cover me," he shouted. The silver-haired warrior met his eyes and nodded. "Go. We will keep the path clear." Cade ran, weaving through the chaos as the warriors carved a bloody trail for him. He reached the core, slamming his hand onto the control panel. The hologram appeared beside him, her form flickering. "Once you start the sequence, you cannot stop it. Are you ready?" The roar of the beasts filled the room. Cade thought of the lives already lost, the worlds already destroyed. He nodded. "Do it!" The core began to glow brighter, heat radiating from it like the sun itself, a deep hum built into a deafening roar. The warriors fought harder, holding the beasts back as the floor shook violently. Light erupted from the core, sweeping through the chamber in a blinding wave. Every beast it touched turned to ash, their screams vanishing into silence. The swarm outside howled in unison. And then, silence. When the light faded, only the humans remained, standing among piles of ash and broken stone. The silver-haired warrior stood with his spear planted in the ground, chest rising and falling. Cade looked around, hardly able to believe it. "It's over." The hologram appeared one last time, her expression softer now. "No, Commander. This was only the first battle. The universe is full of death worlds. And humanity is not done yet. The ancient warriors turned toward Cade, waiting for his next command. For the first time, he felt the weight of what they had become. Not just survivors, but the last line between the galaxy and its nightmares. Cade gripped his rifle, his voice steady. Then we get ready for the next one. Far above them, the stars burned quietly, watching.